Антраль. Для здоров'я печінки та підшлункової залози. Антраль.
Last year, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was disappointed after the Vilnius summit and before it. This year, can we say that we are not disappointed? Or are we enchanted again?
It is absolutely clear that there was quite dense communication before the summit. The final communiqué was shown and, in general, everyone understood perfectly well that no one would accept Ukraine at the summit. We've even discussed that it hasn't even been published in this communiqué yet. Therefore, but everything is logical. They discuss the path, not the final dates. Standard wording that when Ukraine fulfills the conditions. But no. That is, the conditions are also blurred. Reforms are needed, more reforms will be needed. And when the war ends, and then all countries will vote. Could be.
Maybe, yes, Boris. Well, of course, yes. The safety of the road, the bridge to NATO, the doors to NATO, the doors to security. But this is all, as Judy Dempsey says, saying figuratively that we are an Achilles heel, not because we are bad or somehow not suitable for NATO, but on the contrary, we would strengthen the alliance. But it is the fact that we are not invited there that Putin is making up for, not only through aggression against us, but also through the expansion of his wars with his friends in this joint declaration, which we are now seeing. Allies express concern about this friendship and Russia's main joint cooperation with the North Korea, Iran, and the People's Republic of China. In other words, he is taking advantage of this, using any weakness and indecision of NATO to his advantage. Moreover, we did not provoke Russia with our intention to join NATO, because when Russia started a war against us by illegally annexing Crimea, even before joining NATO, it was about defending the Dnipro River. Where else could it scale it if we received a specific membership invitation?
Well, yes, we remember well that the pretext for the alleged infringement of Russian-speaking people served as a pretext, although we understand that Putin was afraid then that with the arrival of pro-Western power, he does not control them, the puppets, he may lose his base in Crimea, the base of the Black Sea Fleet. But in the end it happens so that he loses the Black Sea Fleet together with the base. So, what is important in this final declaration? First of all, what you have already said, the role of China, has been indicated. Maybe quite harsh. And this is the main thing, that this is the trick. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has already tried something there. We regard it there as provocations. Yes, go ahead and tell us, that's the basis. Everything in the declaration of the NATO summit has already been introduced that China is decisive in terms of the power of suppliers of dual-use goods, and not only China, Iran, North Korea and so on. This is a very important point. Further, especially for Putin, who is in favor of not expanding NATO, it states that NATO will continue to expand in the Balkans and the Black Sea region. That is, he was shown that you can want anything there, but in fact you can whisper to Medvedev what you want, and we are here, we have a different story here. Yes, of course, we would like to see clearer wording. Of course, we did not like the fact that the main opponents of more rigid clear formulations were the United States and Germany. That is just the opposite. The countries that should supposedly, Germany is the leader of the European Union, the United States is the world leader, the countries that should punish evil should help to a greater extent, they take the most cautious position. And others, smaller, and even non-nuclear, and even neighbors of the Russian Federation, are taking a tougher stance. Well, anyway, somehow the world turned a little bit upside down, switched roles. What's also interesting, 40 billion will be allocated to Ukraine for weapons, for military aid. A good idea with brigades, like the Polish scenario, let's put it this way. That is, they will train brigades in Poland. And already today Sikorski said that in fact there are already several thousand applications. That is, Ukrainians are simply guaranteed that they... I recently spoke with one of those involved in this, with the People's Deputy, Yuri Kamelchuk. And he told me the idea, what the essence is, that this will be a trained unit. That is, not as, for example, now there, but trained 1,000 people, 20 there, 100 there, taught them in a different way. And this will be a unit that will rotate on one front. That is, the idea is very good. And then, it turns out, they will have some kind of guarantee that after the rotation they will be able to return to the country where they trained, to Poland, for example. But, in general, the idea is very good, as one of the options. Therefore, what else can be taken away from the summit? Well, of course, Joe Biden's speech. Jens Stoltenberg is as pro-Ukrainian as he always was.
What did you think of Joe Biden's speech? Because it was looked at not only in terms of rhetoric, but also in terms of Biden's physiological behavior. It is said that the American election is about the desecrats and the sponsors, some of whom continue to insist that Biden must go. They were watching very closely how he would be, what he would say, and to whom he would address his messages on the margins of the NATO summit in Washington. Who do you think liked it and who didn't like it so much?
Yes, now we are paying close attention. Trump, by the way, is quite a joker. And he says, let's get Biden out of the closet or somewhere where he is sitting there. And another debate. I am ready to have another debate with him. I'll show him again, or he put it somehow, that is, wake up Biden, something like that. Yes, but certainly a wake-up call that if a sitting president by such an important event, a key event actually, like a debate, you could be burdened if you weren't feeling well. Therefore, yes, and the Democrats are already trying to approach it from different sides. But I don't know how the government envelops people so much, or something. I don't know, it enslaves. Well, people don't want to. Well, you've done a lot for the country, really. Joe Biden will go down in history, he has done a lot for the country. Well, you also need to rest. Well, what is going on? I think that if the second debate, although I'm not sure Biden will agree to it, goes the same way and he keeps stalling, well, that would be some kind of crisis then, I think. Come on, we don't talk about them. We've got our own problems.
Nah, why? Let's talk about them, because just the administration of Joe Biden, under his auspices and surname, it is more than cautious about our permissions to beat deep into the Russian Federation and does not give it, on the contrary, from the same UK. We thought about it for a minute with Denis Popovich, a military observer, and I, in general, ask myself this question without end. And how many more hospitals does Putin have to bomb before we get this permission from the Biden administration? What's stopping him?
The mystery of the universe, as they say. I always give this example. World Trade Center, September 11th. Terrorists on an airplane are massacred in broad daylight. Then terrorists, many terrorists are called terrorists, they are searched all over the world, they are found anywhere. In tunnels, in other countries, they are destroyed. From drones, and then in broad daylight a rocket to a children's hospital, where children with cancer with various other diseases live. This is not a terrorist. The main thing here is not to confuse. Then how to distinguish a terrorist from a non-terrorist? At least recognize Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism. This will also be a very important sanction. Reputationally, this will be a very serious blow. But no. This is not. And by the way, here, I've got an interesting piece coming out on the channel today about how Russia has built a line of defense. That it was not us who hit the missiles. And what does Nebenzya say? I will just give you one fragment. First of all, yes, but if you want to see the full episode, subscribe to Boris Tizengausen's channel.
What does Nebenzya say? I also analyzed on air, unfortunately, not with you, but by myself, what was happening at the UN Security Council meeting, where serial killers have been presiding since the 1st of July, which is paradoxical, but not surprising, because last April, when they were fighting us, they also presided there. And for all 11 years they have been sitting in the UN Security Council illegally. He talked for a long time, explained it several times, and gave examples that it was true, that it could not have been their missile, that this was, of course, how Ukrainian air defense systems worked, and all sorts of other heresy. And what is the peculiarity of this line of defense that you see as being built to protect the Russians from their next bloody attack? And I wonder if their propagandists, their military commanders, are so proud of this, and why doesn't Putin's government take it upon themselves to do so? Isn't this the achievement of the SVO? Hitting children with cancer?
Yes, I wanted to quote Nebenzya's entire sentence, verbatim. First of all, he built his line of defense on the fact that he reads Ukrainian telegram channels, Ukrainian social networks. Look, Ukrainian telegram channels say that this is a Western missile. Which Ukrainian telegram feeds are unknown, but we know exactly how this evidence base was built. So, I quote the phrase, it's just that it's complete. Nebenzya says the following. As for the Russian Air Force strike, which, yes, was indeed carried out on Kiev, so we were hitting the Atom factory, Nebenzya says, where missiles or whatever are manufactured there. However, he continues, and Ukrainian users also noticed an interesting peculiarity. The strike on the hospital miraculously coincided with the eve of the NATO Summit. Just now, you bald-headed fool confirmed that it was you who hit the center of Kiev at 10:30 a.m. And then he says, amazingly, it coincided with the NATO Summit, which starts in a few hours. Well, that is, if you look at it, what is the logic there? I remember Nebenzya, who said that we put mosquitoes in a special box. There is this video. That's where these combat mosquitoes came from, and so on. The drone boxed infected mosquitoes and sent the Slavs out to destroy. As mosquitoes sort out then, who is from Ukraine, who is from Russia, they look at the passport there, something else, I do not know, ID, it is unclear. This is this character. And the scariest thing about all of this, the really scary thing is that really since the 1st of July Russia, the presidency of the UN Security Council, being one of the 5 permanent members with veto rights. That is, all that the Security Council will decide is to punish Russia. Russia says, imposing veto. What is it for, then, that this crap is being poured from the rostrum? Why is it needed at all?
Boris, you understand, it's just that sometimes you can see the rest of your brain go along with the hair. And this is exactly about the case of Nebenzya. Well, it's a give and take, as they say, and the UN doesn't even see the point of spending more on it. We have been on various programs talking about the impotence and inaction of this organization. Dissolve it, reformat it, because they feel good there on membership fees. But they can never really do anything, because Russia blocks everything, and China, which also sits sits on the Security Council, can block it, so that's how it is, reformatting. The Russian terrorists say that they will not participate in the second peace summit on Ukraine and the Ukrainian peace formula, which is incredible. They will not. Misha Galazin, Lavrov's deputy, the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry, is talking about this. I quote Misha, "We know the intentions of the Kyiv regime and its Western curators to rehabilitate themselves for the failed peace summit," thinks Galazin, who was not there, in Bergenstock, Switzerland, in mid-June this year, and try to hold a similar event. According to him, Russia hears preliminary rhetoric in a vain attempt to refute Zelensky's absolutely dead-end ultimatum formula. This was said by Mikhail Galazin, who is obviously not a dead end, but a very smart man. This is sarcasm. At the same time, Bloomberg is telling everyone, as you told me, we were discussing before the November 5th elections in the US, probably in October, in Saudi Arabia, that Ukraine wants to hold the second peace summit by November this year, using our formula. And the day before, we heard from Medvedev, Putin's courtier, that Russia, even after the negotiations, will not bury the goal of occupying Ukraine, because Medvedev needs to defend himself from someone, probably from us and from the war mosquitoes. Not a surprising position, of course. What should we do then? Because we plan to transfer the plan through intermediaries. The Russian Federation was still invited to the second peace summit, but they will, of course, ignore it. We just have to do what we have to do, as they say, and carry it out, and not take Russia's position into account. But how to introduce him then? Questions arise.
By the way, yes, Medvedev. Also an interesting story. While Nebenzya was blathering on about some humanistic values, that Russia never hits civilian targets, this Russian Chucky doll came out and said that even when the treaty is signed, it will still be necessary to go back and destroy Ukraine. All these messages are shattered by the alcohol that is in Medvedev's hand. Medvedev explicitly said that it would still be necessary to go back and finish and destroy Ukraine. This is very typical of what Russia will sign something for and how it will sign something. As for whether they will or will not want to be at the summit, the wrong figure spoke, that is, we are waiting for a higher rank, let's say, or not even Lavrov. I think Putin himself will soon say that Russia is ready, taking into account the realities, as he always says. I've outlined my wishes, 4 regions plus the Crimea. The question is, what if Russia does not sit down at the negotiating table? He says we don't want to come. It's a signal even to its, let's say, trading partners like India, China, Saudi Arabia, with whom they're sitting there in APEC, that basically Putin doesn't want to negotiate and his demands are inadequately inflated. Trump said that these are not real demands. So the question will be that if the summit is held before the 5th of November, before the elections, and Russia does not come, it is clear that we will talk about all the good things. But if Russia does not come, who will we talk to? And then a decision will be made, depending on who becomes president. If Trump becomes president, he will understand that, in principle, Putin does not want to talk at all, then no one pulled his tongue, including his Trump plan, which is that if Putin does not want to talk, you need to give Ukraine a lot of weapons, as he put it. As much as you need. Therefore, there is nothing wrong with this.
But could it be the other way around, that if he suddenly comes to an agreement with Putin, he will tell us to sit on the table and negotiate on Trump-Putin terms, otherwise he will give us nothing?
You see, here's a story about mincemeat not turning backwards. Putin said twice, I want the entire region, withdraw the troops. It's clear that Orban, by virtue of shuttle diplomacy, now here's Bloomberg, by the way, the same one, wrote that it's looking more and more like this, that Orban has become a kind of intermediary between Putin and Trump. Went there, gathered opinions, trolled about everyone, and now he's running to Trump. Today, I think, it is found in his estate.
And what will it convey to him that Putin and Xi Jinping want peace talks by the end of this year, and how might Trump respond to that? Because obviously Orban is also a communicator, a mediator from China. Obviously, not from themselves and not even from the Russian Federation. And yes, from Trump and from China Orban is expecting pluses for himself for his negotiating mission, which, however, no one but him was hoping for.
Yeah, well, apparently they've found common ground with Trump, and Trump has repeatedly praised Orban, that he's nationally orientated, etc., that he's great. But for Trump he is very much such an understandable candidate. Orban has profit at the top of his agenda. Principles, some humanistic values, people's lives, people's fates, I don't care, Russian gas is favorable, I will buy it. From a murderer, from a maniac, the main thing is cheaper. That's why Trump likes it too, it seems to me. Trump, it seems to me, will declare a real trade war on China. Moreover, now it is recorded everywhere. China helps, China helps. I think Trump sits and thinks, you already have all the Trump cards, right? And why don't you hit China? Sit there, chewing snot. But Putin will not be able to roll back even to his demands on the demarcation line. Write out half of the territory from the constitution. What are these territories? This is a very difficult moment.
Not an easy one, to put it mildly. We will keep an eye on it. War US, thank you very much. We will see you and Alexander Musienko tomorrow. Friends, please come and subscribe to YouTube. Boris Tazengausen's YouTube is always active, with capital letters Tazengausen in the description below our video. There's even more analytics out there, even more answers for you, so stay tuned. And on YouTube channel 24 please subscribe too. All our interviews and programs can be found there with Boris as well. Boris, good luck to you.